What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, your soul is sending you signals about your spiritual readiness? Signals that most people miss entirely because they're too caught up in the noise of everyday life to hear the whispers of their own spirit. I know that sounds like something out of a mystical dream, but what if I could show you, using the documented findings of Edgar Cayce, the most gifted spiritual seer who ever lived, that your soul has its own language, its own way of telling you that it's preparing for something far greater than this physical existence? Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nothing special, nothing remarkable. I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, and suddenly, without warning, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. Not happiness, not excitement, peace. A deep, profound knowing that everything, and I mean everything, was exactly as it should be. The feeling lasted maybe 30 seconds, and then it was gone, leaving me sitting there wondering what had just happened. 3 weeks later, I stumbled across one of Edgar Cayce's readings from 1934, and there it was, described in perfect detail. He called it a soul recognition moment, a brief instant when your eternal spirit pierces through the veil of your everyday consciousness to remind you of what you really are. And according to Cayce, these moments aren't random. They're not accidents. They're deliberate communications from your higher self, preparing you for the greatest transition you'll ever make. You see, Cayce spent over 40 years conducting readings for thousands of people, and what he discovered will shake everything you thought you knew about life, death, and spiritual readiness. He found that our souls don't just passively wait for death, they actively prepare for it. They send us signs, signals, experiences that gradually shift our consciousness from fear to acceptance, from attachment to surrender, from resistance to readiness. And here's what nobody tells you. These signs have nothing to do with how old you are, how sick you might be, or how close to death you appear to be. Cayce documented cases of young, healthy people displaying all 5 signs of spiritual readiness, and elderly people on their deathbeds showing none. This isn't about your body preparing to die. This is about your soul preparing to fully live in a realm beyond the physical. Before I share these 5 subtle signs with you, signs that might explain profound shifts you've been experiencing in your own consciousness, I need to tell you what Edgar Cayce understood about the nature of the soul itself. Because without this foundation, the signs won't make sense. You'll dismiss them as psychology, as aging, as depression, as anything other than what they really are. In 1928, a wealthy businessman came to Cayce. Terrified because he kept having what he called episodes of detachment. He would be in the middle of a meeting or a dinner party, and suddenly he would feel like he was watching his life from outside his body, like none of it was real, like he was playing a part in a play he no longer cared about. He thought he was losing his mind. He thought he was dying. When Cayce entered his trance state, what came through wasn't a diagnosis of mental illness or terminal disease. It was a revelation about the soul's journey. Cayce explained that the soul, the eternal essence of who we are, exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We're not just physical beings having an occasional spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a temporary physical experience. And as we progress spiritually, as we evolve in consciousness, our soul begins to remember its true nature. It begins to recognize that this physical world, as real as it seems, is just one small room in an infinite mansion of existence. And when that recognition begins, when your soul starts to wake up to its eternal nature, everything changes. The things that used to seem important start to feel trivial. The fears that used to control you start to lose their power. The attachments that used to define you start to loosen their grip. This isn't depression. This isn't giving up on life. This is your soul preparing to expand beyond the limitations of physical existence. Cayce said something that gave me chills when I first read it. He said that the most spiritually advanced souls often seem the most detached from worldly success. Not because they're failures, not because they're weak, but because they're being prepared for a level of existence where worldly success has no meaning whatsoever. They're being prepared to shed the costume of physical identity and remember who they really are. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Cayce discovered that this preparation process follows a pattern. It's not random, it's not chaotic. There are specific signs, subtle shifts in consciousness that indicate your soul is ready or getting ready to make the great transition. And these signs appear in a specific sequence, like a soul preparing for a journey by packing exactly what it needs and leaving behind exactly what it doesn't. But here's the challenge. Most people, when these signs start appearing, panic. They think something is wrong with them. They think they're becoming depressed, losing their edge, giving up on life. They fight against the very process that's meant to liberate them. They resist the preparation that their own soul has initiated. Cayce called this the great tragedy of spiritual ignorance. He said that if people understood what these signs meant, if they recognized them as evidence of spiritual progress rather than psychological decline, they would embrace them, they would work with them. They would allow their souls to complete the preparation process instead of fighting it every step of the way. If you've been experiencing shifts in your consciousness that you can't quite explain, if you've been feeling changes in what matters to you and how you see the world, in your relationship with life itself, I want you to pay close attention. Because what I'm about to share might be the most important thing you hear all year. It might explain everything you've been going through, and it might give you permission to stop fighting and start surrendering to the most natural, most beautiful process your soul will ever experience. The first sign that Edgar Cayce documented extensively is what he called the loosening of attachments. And I need you to understand something crucial here. This is not about becoming cold, heartless, or uncaring. This is not about no longer loving the people in your life or no longer enjoying the experiences you have. This is something far more subtle and far more profound. Cayce explained that as the soul prepares for transition, whether that transition is years away or imminent, it begins to hold things more lightly. The grip softens. The desperation eases. The need for things to be a certain way diminishes. You still love your family, but you're not consumed by the need to control their choices. You still pursue your goals, but you're not destroyed if they don't work out. You still enjoy pleasures, but you're not dependent on them for your sense of well-being. Let me tell you about a woman whose story Cayce documented in 1932. Margaret was 43 years old, successful, married with 3 children, active in her community. By all outward appearances, she had everything. But she came to Cayce because she was frightened by changes she was experiencing in herself. She said she felt like she was losing her personality, like the person she had been for 43 years was slowly dissolving. She described it like this: "The things that used to excite me don't excite me anymore. The drama that used to consume me feels silly now. I look at my life and I still participate in it, but I feel like I'm watching it happen rather than being desperate for it to turn out a certain way. My husband thinks I'm depressed, but I'm not sad. I'm actually more at peace than I've ever been. I just don't care about things the way I used to care about them." When Cayce read for her, he told her something that brought tears to her eyes. He said, "Your soul is preparing itself for higher realms of existence. You're not losing yourself, you're finding your true self. The personality you think is dissolving was never the real you. It was a costume, a role, a temporary identity you adopted for this physical journey. And now your soul is gently, lovingly, helping you take off that costume so that when the time comes to transition, you won't be clinging to an identity that no longer serves you." This is the first sign. And it's so subtle that most people miss it entirely. They think they're becoming depressed or losing their passion for life. But according to Cayce, this loosening of attachments is actually evidence of profound spiritual maturity. It's your soul saying, "I remember now. I remember that I'm more than this body, more than this personality, more than this collection of roles and responsibilities. I'm eternal. I'm infinite. And I'm preparing to expand beyond these temporary limitations. Now here's what's important. This doesn't mean you withdraw from life. It doesn't mean you stop caring about people or pursuing meaningful goals. Cayce was very clear about this. You can be fully engaged in your life while simultaneously holding it more lightly. In fact, when you stop being desperately attached to outcomes, you often become more effective, more present, more genuinely loving, because you're no longer acting from fear and need. You're acting from peace and abundance. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you noticed this shift? Have you noticed that things that used to devastate you now roll off your back more easily? Have you noticed that you're less impressed by status, by possessions, by achievements? Have you noticed that you can hold your opinions, your preferences, your desires more loosely? If so, this isn't a problem. According to Edgar Cayce, this is progress. This is your soul preparing for something magnificent. The second sign that Cayce documented is what he called the increasing awareness of the eternal now. This one is fascinating because it seems to contradict everything we think about getting older or preparing for death. Most people assume that as you age, you spend more time thinking about the past, reminiscing about the good old days, or worrying about the limited future ahead of you. But Cayce discovered exactly the opposite in spiritually ready souls. He found that as the soul prepares for transition, it becomes less interested in the past and the future and more absorbed in the present moment. Not in a hedonistic, eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow, we die kind of way, but in a profound, contemplative, this moment is all that exists kind of way. Time starts to feel different. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes, or minutes can expand into what feels like hours. You become more aware of the eternal quality of now, the way this present moment is actually connected to all moments, to all of time, to eternity itself. Cayce explained this in a reading from 1936. He said that physical time is an illusion created by the limitations of physical consciousness. Our souls don't actually experience time the way our minds experience time. Our souls exist in what he called the eternal present, a dimension where past, present, and future are all accessible simultaneously. And as we prepare for transition, as our consciousness begins to shift from physical to spiritual awareness, we start to experience time the way our souls experience time, as one continuous, eternal now. I remember reading about a man named Robert who came to Cayce because he thought he was developing some kind of neurological disorder. He said that he would be doing normal activities, washing dishes, walking down the street, sitting in his office, and suddenly time would seem to stop. Not literally stop, but the quality of time would change. He said it felt like he could see the eternity inside the moment, like the present moment opened up and revealed itself to be infinite. Cayce told him that he wasn't sick. He was waking up. His soul was beginning to perceive reality the way it actually exists, beyond the limiting framework of linear time. And this, Cayce said, was a sign that his consciousness was preparing to transition from a time-bound existence to a timeless existence. Here's what this looks like in everyday life. You might find yourself less interested in plans, in schedules, in looking forward to things or looking back at things. You might find that you're more content to simply be where you are, doing what you're doing, without constantly wishing you were somewhere else or some time else. You might find that memories of the past don't pull you the way they used to, and fantasies about the future don't distract you the way they once did. Again, this isn't depression. This isn't giving up. This is your consciousness expanding beyond the prison of linear time. This is your soul helping you practice for an existence where there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, only the infinite richness of eternal presence. The third sign is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. Cayce called it the attraction to silence and solitude. Now, before you start thinking this is about becoming antisocial or isolated, let me explain what Cayce actually meant. This isn't about rejecting people or withdrawing from relationships. This is about a growing need for internal space, for quiet, for time alone with your own soul. Cayce documented case after case of people who, as they became more spiritually ready, found themselves craving solitude in a way they never had before. Not lonely solitude, not depressed isolation, but peaceful, restorative, deeply nourishing aloneness. They would turn down social invitations that they once would have accepted. They would seek out quiet places, quiet activities, quiet moments. They would find themselves less interested in constant stimulation, constant entertainment, constant interaction, and more interested in simply being still. Why does this happen? According to Cayce, as the soul prepares for transition, it needs time to adjust to its own presence. Think about it this way. Most people spend their entire lives running from themselves, filling every moment with activity, noise, stimulation, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own soul. But when your soul is preparing for transition, it needs you to get comfortable with yourself, comfortable with silence, comfortable with the presence of your own eternal nature. Cayce said that the afterlife, the realm your soul will inhabit after physical death, is not a place of constant activity and
interaction. It's a place of profound peace, profound silence, profound communion with the divine. And if you're not comfortable with silence now, if you can't be alone with yourself now, the transition will be much more difficult. Your soul knows this, and so it begins to draw you toward the very experiences that will prepare you for what's coming. I want to share a reading Cayce did for a woman named Elizabeth in 1938. She wrote to him saying that she had always been a social person, the life of every party, someone who thrived on connection and conversation. But over the previous year, she had found herself making excuses to stay home, to be alone, to sit in silence. Her friends thought she was depressed. Her husband thought she was pulling away from him. But she wasn't sad. She was peaceful. She just needed to be quiet in a way she had never needed before. Cayce told her something beautiful. He said, "Your soul is calling you home to yourself. You're not withdrawing from life. You're going deeper into life. You're discovering that the most meaningful connection you can have is the connection with your own eternal nature, with the divine presence within you. And as you strengthen that connection, all your other connections will actually become richer, deeper, more authentic, because you'll no longer be seeking from others what you can only find within yourself." This is the third sign. An increasing attraction to silence, to solitude, to stillness. Not as an escape from life, but as a return to the source of life. Not as a rejection of connection, but as a deepening of the most important connection of all, the connection between your temporary self and your eternal self. Now, the fourth sign that Edgar Cayce documented is what he called the shifting of values from the material to the meaningful. And this one is particularly powerful in our modern world, where we're constantly told that more is better, that success is measured by what you own, by what you achieve, by what you accumulate. Cayce found that as souls prepare for transition, they experience a profound shift in what they value. Things that once seemed important, wealth, status, possessions, achievements, recognition, begin to feel hollow, empty, ultimately meaningless. And things that might have seemed soft or intangible, love, kindness, connection, beauty, truth, begin to feel like the only things that have ever really mattered. This isn't about becoming irresponsible or checking out of your obligations. Cayce was very clear about this. You can still pay your bills, do your job, take care of your responsibilities, but your relationship to all of it changes. You're no longer working to accumulate. You're working to contribute. You're no longer pursuing success for success's sake. You're pursuing meaning, purpose, service. Let me tell you about a reading Cayce did in 1940 that perfectly illustrates this sign. A wealthy industrialist came to him troubled by what he called a
crisis of meaning, he said. I've spent 30 years building my company, accumulating wealth, achieving success, and now, suddenly, I look at all of it and I feel nothing. No pride, no satisfaction, nothing. I look at my bank account, my properties, my achievements, and I think, so what? What does any of this mean? What does any of this matter? He thought he was having a breakdown. He thought he was losing his drive, his ambition, his edge. But Cayce told him that he was actually having a breakthrough. He said, your soul is showing you what's real and what's illusion. Material success is an illusion. It feels real while you're pursuing it, but the moment you achieve it, you realize it's empty. What's real is love. What's real is the quality of your relationships. What's real is the difference you make in people's lives. What's real is your connection to the divine. Your soul knows this, and it's helping you reorient your life toward what actually matters. The industrialist later wrote to Cayce saying that this reading changed everything. He didn't abandon his business, but he transformed how he ran it. He started prioritizing people over profits, meaning over metrics, contribution over accumulation, and he said that for the first time in his life, he felt like he was actually living, actually making a difference, actually preparing for something that would outlast his physical existence. This is the fourth sign, a profound shift in values from the material to the meaningful. You might find yourself less impressed by wealth and success stories. You might find yourself more moved by simple acts of kindness. You might find yourself drawn to deeper conversations, to more authentic relationships, to experiences that feed your soul rather than your ego. You might find yourself asking, what really matters? What will still matter after I'm gone? What has eternal value? According to Edgar Cayce, these questions aren't signs of a midlife crisis or depression. They're signs of spiritual awakening. They're signs that your soul is preparing you to let go of what's temporary and embrace what's eternal. And the more you honor this shift, the more you align your life with these deeper values, the more ready your soul becomes for the ultimate transition. The fifth and final sign that Cayce documented is perhaps the most profound of all. He called it the experience of unconditional peace. Now, this isn't the kind of peace that comes from having all your problems solved or all your needs met. This isn't circumstantial peace. This is what Cayce called soul peace, a deep, unshakable knowing that everything is exactly as it should be, even when your life circumstances might suggest otherwise. Cayce explained that this peace comes from a place beyond the mind, beyond the emotions, beyond circumstances. It comes from the soul's direct knowledge of its own eternal nature. When your soul remembers that it's immortal, that it's part of the divine, that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists, a profound peace settles into your being. Not because life is perfect, but because you've tapped into something that transcends life's imperfections. I want to share one of the most powerful readings Cayce ever gave on this subject. It was 1941, and a woman came to him who had lost her husband, her son, and her home all within a single year. By every measure, her life had fallen apart. Yet she told Cayce that despite all of this, she felt an inexplicable peace. She felt guilty about this peace, like she should be more devastated, more broken, but instead she felt held by something larger than her circumstances, something that assured her that all was well, even when nothing seemed well. Cayce told her that this peace was the greatest gift her soul could give her. He said, "You're experiencing the peace that passes understanding, the peace that exists in the presence of the divine. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances, it's dependent on internal connection. And the fact that you're experiencing it now in the midst of such loss proves that your soul has made contact with its eternal source. This peace is preparing you for transition, not because transition is imminent, but because this peace is the atmosphere of the spiritual realms. You're getting a preview of what awaits you. This is the fifth sign. an experience of peace that makes no logical sense based on your circumstances. A peace that rises up from deep within you, often at the most unexpected moments. A peace that assures you, without words, that you're going to be okay, that everything is going to be okay, that in fact, everything already is okay, even if your mind can't understand how. You might experience this peace in meditation, in prayer, in moments of stillness. You might experience it in nature, in the middle of the night, in the space between thoughts. You might experience it during a crisis, during a loss, during a time when peace should be impossible. And when it comes, it doesn't feel earned or achieved. It feels given. It feels like grace. It feels like your soul reaching through the chaos of your life to remind you of something you've forgotten, something essential, something true. According to Cayce, this peace is not just a nice feeling, it's evidence. It's proof that your soul has made contact with the eternal realm. It's confirmation that you're not just a body that has a soul, but a soul that has a body. And when that body is no longer needed, when it's time to transition, this peace will be your guide, your companion, your home. Now here's what I need you to understand. These 5 signs, the loosening of attachments, the awareness of the eternal now, the attraction to silence and solitude, the shifting of values from material to meaningful, and the experience of unconditional peace are not signs that you're dying. They're signs that you're waking up. They're signs that your soul is remembering its true nature. And yes, this process does prepare you for physical death, but it also prepares you for spiritual life. It prepares you to live more fully, more authentically, more consciously right here, right now. Cayce was very clear about something that most people misunderstand. He said that the most spiritually ready people are often the most fully alive. They're not checked out. They're not just waiting to die. They're present, engaged, loving, serving, but they're doing all of this from a place of peace rather than fear, from abundance rather than lack, from eternity rather than time. Think about the great spiritual teachers throughout history. Think about people who radiated peace, who seemed to move through life with grace and wisdom and compassion. Do you think they were unprepared for death? Or do you think they were so prepared for death that they were finally free to fully live? Cayce said that true spiritual readiness doesn't make you morbid or detached. It makes you more present, more loving, more alive than you've ever been. Because you're no longer living from fear. You're living from trust. I want you to think about your own life now. As you've been listening to these 5 signs, have you recognized any of them in yourself? Have you noticed the loosening of attachments, the way things that used to matter so much just don't pull you anymore? Have you noticed shifts in how you experience time, moments when you feel more present, more aware of the eternal quality of now? Have you felt drawn to silence, to solitude, to time alone with your own soul? Have your values shifted from achievement and accumulation to meaning and connection? Have you experienced moments of inexplicable peace, peace that makes no sense based on your circumstances but feels more real than anything else? If you've recognized even one of these signs, I want you to know something. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. You're not becoming depressed. You're becoming awake. You're not preparing to die. You're preparing to live, really live, perhaps for the first time in your life. And here's the beautiful paradox that Cayce taught. The more prepared you are for death, the more fully you can embrace life. Because you're no longer afraid. You're no longer grasping. You're no longer running from the inevitable. You've made peace with your own eternity, and that peace transforms everything. But I want to be very clear about something. These signs don't mean your death is imminent. Cayce documented these signs in people who lived for decades after experiencing them. These signs aren't about timing. They're about readiness. They're about spiritual maturity. They're about your soul's journey toward remembering its true nature. Some people experience all 5 signs over the course of years. Some experience them over the course of decades. Some experience 1 or 2 signs strongly and the others more subtly. There's no fixed pattern, no rigid timeline. Your soul's preparation is unique to you, guided by your own inner wisdom, your own spiritual journey, your own relationship with the divine. What matters is that you recognize these signs for what they are, not problems to be solved, not symptoms to be treated, not failures to be corrected. They're gifts, they're invitations. They're your soul's way of saying, it's time to remember, it's time to wake up, it's time to stop identifying so completely with this temporary physical existence and remember that you're eternal, infinite, divine. Cayce often said that the purpose of life is not to avoid death. The purpose of life is to prepare for what comes after death. And the way you prepare is not by withdrawing from life, but by living it more fully, more consciously, more lovingly than ever before. You prepare by loosening your grip on what's temporary. You prepare by becoming present to what's eternal. You prepare by seeking silence so you can hear the voice of your own soul. You prepare by aligning your values with what truly matters. And you prepare by opening yourself to a peace that transcends all understanding. This preparation doesn't take you out of the world. It puts you more fully into the world. Because when you're no longer afraid, when you're no longer grasping, when you're no longer desperate, you become a source of peace for others. You become a light in the darkness. You become a reminder that there's something more, something beyond, something eternal. I think about my own grandmother now, the one whose letters led me to Edgar Cayce's work. I think about how, in the last years of her life, she embodied all 5 of these signs. She held everything lightly. She lived so fully in the present moment. She craved time alone, time in silence. She gave away most of her possessions and seemed interested only in love, in connection, in meaning. And she radiated a peace that I couldn't understand at the time, a peace that seemed impossible given her age, her aches, her losses. But now I understand. She wasn't waiting to die. She was ready to transition. And that readiness freed her to love more deeply, to be more present, to shine more brightly in her final years than many people shine in their entire lives. She taught me that spiritual readiness isn't about being done with life. It's about being fully alive, fully awake, fully here. Because you're no longer afraid of what comes next. So here's what I want you to take with you. If you're experiencing any of these 5 signs, celebrate them, honor them, work with them. They're not signs that something is wrong. They're signs that something is very, very right. Your soul is waking up. Your consciousness is expanding. You're preparing not just for a good death, but for a good life. The kind of life that's lived from eternity rather than time, from abundance rather than fear, from peace rather than anxiety. Talk to the divine about what you're experiencing. Ask for guidance, for clarity, for courage to embrace these shifts rather than resist them. Spend time in silence, listening to your own soul. Pay attention to what brings you peace, what feels meaningful, what aligns with your deepest values, and let go, gently and gradually, of the things that no longer serve your soul's journey. Remember what Edgar Cayce taught. You are not a body that has a soul. You are a soul that has a body, and everything you're experiencing in this physical life is preparation for your soul's eternal journey. The shifts you're experiencing, the signs you're recognizing, they're all part of your soul's loving guidance, preparing you for something more beautiful than you can imagine. Death is not the end of your story. It's not even the end of a chapter. It's a transition, a graduation, a return home. And the more prepared you are for that transition, the more fully you can embrace this life, this moment, this precious opportunity to love, to learn, to grow, to become everything your soul was meant to be. Your spiritual readiness isn't something to fear, it's something to celebrate, because it means you're finally becoming who you really are. You're finally waking up from the dream of separation and remembering the truth of your eternal connection to all that is, to all that ever was, to all that ever will be. Right now, in this moment, your soul is with you. Not as something separate, not as something distant, but as the deepest, truest part of who you are. And if you're quiet enough, if you're still enough, if you're open enough, you can feel it. You can sense its presence. You can hear its whispers, and it's telling you something you need to hear. It's telling you that you're safe, that you're loved, that you're eternal, that death is nothing to fear because you are so much more than this body, this life, this brief moment in time. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Edgar Cayce's profound teachings. If this message has touched something deep within you, if it's helped you understand shifts you've been experiencing in your own consciousness, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of the soul and spiritual readiness. And remember, you're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. You're not preparing to end. You're preparing to begin. The real you, the eternal you, is just starting to wake up. Until next time, trust the process, honor the signs, and know that your soul is preparing you for something more beautiful than you can imagine. Peace be with you, and peace be within you, now and always.